If you have a passion for it, if it's something that you love, if it's a deep desire, just take the risk. I was a single mom when I got laid off, and for me to not go find stability and getting another job was huge. The risk is very much worth it, but have your passion and have your reason why. I would find my reason why and the risk and just do it. Just take the step forward and move on.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we have Nicole Anderson. Nicole, we're so glad you're with us. Thanks for joining.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Nicole. Well, thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your former career and how long you were in that line of work?
So I actually started college in interior design. And I went through the entire interior design program, got to my third year, and then transitioned into retail and worked in retail. And then I found myself in human resources about 6 years out. And then once I got into human resources in the corporate world, I decided, you know what, I'm ready to be an entrepreneur. So I went out and became an entrepreneur 5 years ago, and it just happened to be in HR. So I started my own HR consulting firm and recruiting firm.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in your past, maybe, again, it sounds like you've done a couple of different things in there, with the interior design, the retail, and then obviously moving over to the HR side, first formally in corporate, then in with your own company, which is awesome. Is there a funny story you can share from the past that, something that, caused you to scratch your head, say, why am I doing this?
So I find it funny just because I'm in HR. So I don't know how many people are going to find it funny, maybe a little bit interesting. It was in probably my third or fourth HR job when I first became an executive in HR. I got a note under my door. And it was a note from like 3 or 4 employees, anonymous, but they said that there were 3 or 4 of them that were writing this note to tell me that somebody was poisoning their own food. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange. They gave me the employee's name, and I was like, why would an employee poison their own food? And so obviously I called her into the office, and I was talking to her, and she's like, yeah, people were stealing my food. So I decided to poison it so I could find out who's stealing my food. And I was like, you do know that's illegal, right? And she's like, what, to poison my own food? And I was like, yeah, it is illegal to do that. And we went back and forth. I told her she was suspended and I was pending investigation, and went through the whole thing. We ultimately terminated her. She came back and was fighting us because it was her food that she was poisoning. She was fighting us on unemployment, and we got on the unemployment call, and the magistrate was like, okay, Miss Anderson, you know how this goes. Most likely the employee is gonna, get unemployment. I said, that's fine. I was like, but wait till you hear this story. Like, she intentionally did this. And he's like, okay. And we're talking through the whole story on this hearing. And he goes, ma'am, do you realize that it's illegal to poison your own food? And she's like, it's not illegal. I wasn't trying to kill somebody. I just wanted them to stop taking my phone or my food. And he goes, how long had people been taking your food? And she goes, oh, well, it happened like 6 or 7 months ago. And he's like, and you just now, within the last couple of weeks, started poisoning your own food? Well, yeah. So it was probably the one that made me sit and think, like, do I really want this job? Like, really, do I want to be in HR? Because it was an interesting, there was a lot of legal battle back and forth with this situation.
Holy moly.
That's crazy. Yeah. We have a company policy of bear traps only in the fridge, no poison. A little more humane there, but.
Well, and I had told her, I said, we have cameras in the kitchen. Like, if you would have just come to us and let us know, like, hey, I think somebody's stealing my food, we would have been able to look at the camera and see who was doing it. I was like, but to try to to kill somebody for taking your food. Like, is that worth it?
Well, I wasn't trying to kill them. I was just trying to maim them.
Yeah, that's true. Make them think twice about taking that sandwich.
Right. No one ate any of her birthday cake at the party, I'm assuming.
Wow. That's some extreme measures, man. Woo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Nicole, other than that, what was the deciding factor that had you leave the corporate world and become the more entrepreneurial journey of your own business? Was there anything in particular? Was it just kind of built up over time, or something you always wanted to do?
Well, I always knew I was going to have my own business. I mean, when I went into interior design, you generally don't work for a firm. You generally work for yourself. But my path didn't take me there in the beginning. Obviously, it was a good thing because I had to get experience and knowledge and learn. But I think accumulative over time is what ultimately made me take the jump and say, you know what, I'm doing this on my own. And I think I really struggled with the way that corporate America handles human resources. I really struggled with that. I feel that there's a way to make human resources revenue generating versus non-revenue generating. And there's a lot of things you have to fix. And I was like, I know I can do this way better. I can do it way better on my own. So at my last W-2 position, owners just weren't listening. There was a lot of issues, a lot of problems. They went from 1,500 employees down to like 300 employees in 2.5 years. Like, there was just a lot of issues. And it kind of worked out. I started my business in August. I was going to stay at my employer for a year to get, hopefully some contracts. And I got laid off. The writing was on the wall. We all knew it was coming. We just didn't know when. I got laid off a couple months later. And I was like, well, this is my chance. I'm going to sink or swim. And, we've been very successful for the last 5 years, especially talking about how to change your HR department to not be so compliance driven and be more of a business partner and help focus on the bottom line of the business.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. So to that point, one of the things that I've always, when I was in the corporate world, I always struck me as something that was kind of like how do you compartmentalize? And you'll see what I mean in a second. So, I've seen it happen where the HR is like the right-hand person of the boss. And then the boss gets in the hot seat and the boss gets fired by the HR person that was the right hand. And they sort of had a, kind of a close relationship, but then it almost had to, light switch and it had to become strictly business. And I don't know, that seems like it would be pretty hard.
It is. I think that there is a certain personality that handles those situations. I'm probably one of the most objective persons. No matter what my personal feelings are, I can make the right decision for the company and for the employee, whatever, or in this case, a manager. So I think, it definitely does take that special personality to be in human resources, but it also takes somebody who has that entrepreneur and business understanding. Yeah. To be in that if your close relationship with someone, if they're no longer benefiting the company and they're not benefiting the company and then they're not being benefited, it's time to part ways. Yeah. And I've always went into all of those relationships and I let everyone know right up front, I may have to fire you one day and you have to be okay with that. But don't give me a reason to have to fire you. If you're going to be fired, let it be terminated, let it be because of attrition or you're moving on to another business or, there's a layoff, restructuring. Don't make it be a reason that challenges your character.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, it's no doubt it's a hard thing to do on both sides of that equation, but at the same point in time, obviously, you don't want it to be for cause. You want it to be for, some sort of a business reason that in a way does make it a little easier all around, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So Nicole, in your new world, in your own company, can you tell us about any obstacles you've encountered?
I think the obstacle the major obstacle is most people have this idea of what HR is. what they're familiar with, what they've dealt with HR, that when we come at them as an HR company, they're like, oh no, like, I know what this is going to I know how this is going to end. And that's been our biggest obstacle, is they're like, you're going to force us to be, 100% compliant, push paperwork at us. Everybody's going to get written up. It's always a bad thing when HR comes in. And we really try to spin it as, we're not coming in to shake up your organization. We're coming in to make it better. And if you do have low hanging fruit, we need to address that. And so our biggest challenge is just getting in front of business owners that don't have this bad perception of human resources, and changing that changing that aspect of it. And once we're in, they're like, oh, this is the most amazing thing we've done. We should have done this sooner.
Okay. So how does your business work? Are you essentially like a fractional HR provider, I guess, in a way that you are obviously consulting for these other companies on a part-time basis? Is that kind of how it works?
Mm-hmm. So we have two parts of our business. So we have the HR side, where it's mostly project-based, and the fractional. We go in, we fix everything, we make everything how it needs to be, and then we either train your current HR, or we can bring in HR people that are trained to how we've strategized with your organization. But our goal is to bring in HR individuals that are like-minded. So they're coming in to continue the business strategy with HR. And then we have full service recruiting. So we do all high-level, high-end, hard to fill positions. And we use AI technology. We do about 95% of the work, so that our clients only have to do about 5%, which is the final interviews. We do everything, send them 3 or 4 candidates, and then they hire. We charge half of what the industry charges for recruiting.
Nice.
We use AI technology. So we build a profile with our client, and we type all that criteria into our AI tech, and then that tech pulls up ideal candidates. And then we either go poach them from the competitors, or they're people that are applying and looking for the job.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And again, how's the recruiting world going these days in a COVID world?
For us, the recruiting world has been great. And I think in COVID and recruiting, some of the misconceptions is that people are like, there's a worker shortage, and there's really not a worker shortage. There's a skilled worker shortage, which is totally different. And that's because the age gap and people retiring happened about 2.5 years earlier than it was supposed to. So people weren't prepared for that transition out of the workforce. And so now they're looking for workers to fill those gaps, to train the younger generation, and they're not finding that because those employees are employed elsewhere and happy at their jobs.
Okay, gotcha. I see something over your left shoulder there. What's that?
So that is my book. I wrote it and released it in August of 2021. It's HR is Sexy, Revolutionizing Human Resources. So I wrote the book as a way to kind of get out my version of human resources instead of what everybody thinks human resources is. I obviously think it's a sexy career. It's definitely been sexy for me. And so I want everybody to understand, and we have 3 sections in there. One is HR and leadership, hiring culture, and then your employees. So I separated them into sections. So if somebody only needs to learn about hiring culture, that's all they have to read. And building a hiring culture, again, helps with that recruiting piece that everybody is struggling with.
Okay. Very cool. Well, congratulations on the book. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, Nicole, as you started your own business, what was one of your first victories you can recall? Was it landing a large client, or did just solidify that you were on the right path? You made the right choice?
So I got laid off in October. No, I got laid off in November. I started hustling. I was like, well, I gotta make money. I gotta figure out how to do this. So in February, we landed our first contract with a Fortune 100 large manufacturer or electronics manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge win for us. It gave us value in the market. It gave us a talking point to be able to say, yeah, we have this client that's a Fortune 100. We had that client for 4 years. And then we transitioned out of that client because we were moving our business in a different direction. But we once we got that client, it was like so much. And our second year in business, we grew 250%. So that was a huge win for us.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. And again, to come out of the gate to land a Fortune 100 client so quickly in your new company is pretty awesome. So well done. Wow.
Thanks.
So with your new company, have you come across something humorous that you can share with us in your new company?
Actually, I do. So we do, like I said, we do recruiting. And one of the things that I teach in my book is what it means when a candidate leaves within the first 90 days. So first 30 days is usually job expectations, or they don't understand the job expectations. And then 60 to 90 days, it's generally leadership or training is why your candidates leave. So we got a call from a client or a potential client. We were talking with him. He was a call center, and we were talking about what his challenges were. And he's like, well, I just can't keep people. And I was like, okay, let's dive into this. Here comes my HR background. Let's dive into why you can't keep people. I was like, why are they leaving? And I was like, what's the time frame? And he goes, well, they're leaving between 60 to 90 days. And I said, okay, so they know the job. So that's a plus. I was like, so secondly, what does your training look like? And he's like, well, we have a dynamic training program and all this. I said, okay, then it's your leadership. And he goes, okay, well, what do I do about that? I said, well, if you have 150% turnover, like you're telling me, your leadership needs to be fired. Like you need to let go of whoever's managing that program if over the last 2 years, each year consecutively, you've had 150% turnover. And I gave him the number. I was like, you're losing probably between $50,000 to $60,000 every 6 months for that turnover. It's probably more, but that was just quick math in my head. And he goes, okay, so what do I really need to do? And I said, well, you need to let go of your leadership or you need to properly train them. And he goes, well, I can't do that. And I said, why? He goes, that's my wife. And I was like, I don't know that we can help you. And he hung up the phone and we never talked to him again. So that's that nepotism. And so he was willing to continue losing thousands and thousands of dollars in turnover because he did not want to fire his wife, but she was not being an effective leader. So
I just learned some details about a particular situation that I can't talk about here in a recorded world, but some of the stuff I heard last night about an HR situation made my hair stand up. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. From nepotism to toxic work environment to just outright verbal abuse. It shocked me, some of the stuff I heard. But again, can't go into it here, but yeah, it's amazing sometimes what you would think would never happen in a professional organization. You would think that a company that's in the business to serve its customers and to make money would treat its employees right. Because again, like you said, $50,000 to $60,000 loss. That's how could you sustain that? I don't know how big the company was. It doesn't matter. But the point is, how could you sustain that? That's crazy.
Well, my last W-2 employer, I calculated once I came in, and they had lost in the prior 2 years over $5 million in turnover. And I took that number because there are hard costs to hiring and terminating. Some states have even more depending on your new hire tax filing. Some states, that new hire tax filing is $800 a pop. So right then you're filing a new hire. Just 10 people, you're spending $8,000 on fixed cost. And that's just one fixed cost. It's not the benefits you're already paying and, the other taxes you're paying plus training hours. And it's a culture, which is why I talk a lot about hiring culture. A lot of that starts at hiring. Like, you have to build out a hiring culture that is not necessarily completely your workplace culture, but it's complementary of both of them. Because the cost to a small business to keep turning over staff is astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen it in large organizations that I've worked for in the past where, it feels like, there's a certain achievement that happens or doesn't happen at a higher executive level. And then when that executive gets shown the door, then a whole new regime comes in with a whole new sales approach and a whole new set of, sales people. And I scratch my head at how much money is being lost by, things like that. Again, obviously there are going to be those cases where somebody, is expected to perform and doesn't, but it's crazy. Yeah.
And I think establishing the core values of the organization. I know we do mission and vision, but if we make policy and procedure that match those core values and we hold our leaders accountable to those core values, you tend to have a much better ability to retain staff. And it's those core values. And, I use the example when companies use a core value of creativity. Okay, that is a core value. They preach it, they put it in all their marketing and everything. But then you come into an organization and their dress code is so strict. Like, you have to have natural hair, you have to have cover all your and I know that there's industries that you have to, but if you're a marketing agency and you're telling your staff, like, you can only have natural colored hair. Well, where's the creativity in those policies that you're preaching is a core value? And I think that's where a lot of the organizations miss, where your policy and procedures have to match what your core values are. And once you flip that, you kind of flip the culture, you get better leaders that come in because you're hiring to those core values. That's the only thing. You can hire somebody completely out of the industry that's not on your mission, or doesn't know your mission, but if they have your core values implanted, they will do a successful job if you just teach them those core values. And we have an example here. I hired a recruiter who had no recruiting experience, but he fit our core values and our personal values. And he's been the best recruiter I've ever worked with. And I've worked in this business for 16 years. He matched exactly what our core values are. And I think that's what companies need to focus on. Like, if your policies don't match what you're saying in your marketing, then you're hurting your culture internally.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Nicole, where are you today on your journey as you're growing your new business? Are you looking to expand, or what's your path forward?
Well, we are definitely expanding and looking to expand. We already have a national reach. Our goal is to be regional. We want to have an office in 5 regions. We definitely are pushing our recruiting side of our business. Right now, it's the most need in the HR industry. So we're really focused on the recruiting and scaling that business. And I have a team that's focused on that business. And then I have myself, where I'm focused on the fractional HR, because that's my passion. That's what I love, is to go into these businesses and help them be successful, and then back out of the business once things are, up and running and smooth. And then I'm just there on a consultant basis.
All right. Very good.
All right. That makes sense. Yeah. Nicole, is there anything that you do that you can share, that you do something as an approach to give back to the community, to your customers, to something? Anything you can share?
Yeah. So last year we, I say we, but it was me. I started a nonprofit called Saoirse Baile. It means Freedom Place in Gaelic. And it is, we're building it to become a sanctuary for sexual abuse victims. and sex trafficking and human trafficking victims, where they can recover and heal and then learn business and how to start their own businesses and become entrepreneurs. Originally, we had started to just be for women, but we had transitioned that into being able to work with men and women, because there's a demographic of men that still go through those same things, and there's not a lot of resources. And then also this year, we're planning to launch the Tracy Lynn Foundation, which is named after my late mother. And it is to provide mental health and health resources for the healthcare industry or healthcare workers, and then provide scholarships for nursing students going into nursing. So that's what we are working for. In the past, I've done not worked with nonprofits in the teen mom sexual abuse industry in that world. And then we decided to launch our own through Mend.
Wow, that's impressive. It's unbelievable that in this modern world we have things like sex trafficking. I can't even believe it. I mean, actually, Bill and I last year created the Park Capital Partners Foundation as a nonprofit, and our approach is that we handpicked a number of different charities. So when an investor invests with us in our deals, we make a donation to honor that investor to a charity of their choice. And we picked a wide variety of different categories, but one of them was Operation Underground Railroad, which
Yes.
helps to work to prevent sex trafficking as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, there are countries where it's still legal. And there's a foundation called A21. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but they have been a lead fighter in human and sex trafficking. It's led by Christine Kane. And they talk about it. They talk about the countries where it is legal to traffic somebody for sex and traffic somebody for slavery, where it is still legal in this world today. And it's really unfortunate. You would hope that by the 21st century, we would have moved out of the need to oppress people that way. But it hasn't. And and a lot of them come to the United States seeking refuge, and a lot of them have nowhere to go. They don't have anybody to take them in. They're damaged. They need to heal. That healing process is different for everybody. So that's why we started Sir Shabila, so that they had a place to heal and didn't have a time frame. So they weren't rushed out in 6 weeks.
Wow. Well done. You're going to have to give us that spelling, because honestly, I have no idea how to spell Sir Shabila.
No problem. No problem.
Okay.
I will send that over to you.
Good. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. So That's awesome. Well done. And also please reference the other foundation too, which is great as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, Nicole, on your business side of it, what's something you've recently implemented that's helped you grow your business, achieve some of your goals? Any practices or?
So for us, it was, since we were doing things a little different in HR, it was a shift for us to try to come up with new processes and procedures. And one of the things that I know that helped us grow our business was lead generation. Is figuring out how to get leads of people who are interested in HR. And that's something we recently implemented. And it has the projection to help us scale pretty fast, which we don't want to do. We want to make sure that we grow at a reasonable pace. But I think implementing a way to get leads other than word of mouth and referrals has been a game changer for our business. But for many small businesses, that's not, it's a large investment to be able to purchase those systems that produce lead generating. And so, you have to take a hit somewhere. So where are you going to take from the budget? And we decided to, not hire another HR person or recruiter, but to provide the lead generation right now. And then I was taking over more of the recruiting, and my team was going to take on more of the HR work. So, there's a give and take with some of that, but something that we recently implemented was the lead generation system and the AI technology as well.
Very cool. Nicole, what advice would you give somebody who's considering making a path change?
Take the risk. I mean, if you have a passion for it, if it's something that you love, if it's a deep desire, just take the risk. Some days I'm like, I don't know if the risk was worth it. But it was, and those are just on the bad days. But at the end of the day, it was totally worth it. I was a single mom when I got laid off. And for me to not go find stability and getting another job was huge. It was a big, big deal for me because I was like, I've got to provide for my daughter. I got to make sure she has a stable home. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to pay for her college so that she didn't have to take out loans or I didn't have to take out loans. So I was like, the only way that I'm ever going to be able to do that is to start my own business and start helping other people. And so the risk is very much worth it, but have your passion and have your reason why. If you don't have those two things, I wouldn't take the risk right away. I would find my reason why and the risk and just do it. Just take the step forward and move on.
Yeah.
Advice.
Absolutely. Well, Nicole, what's the best way for the listeners to be able to reach out to you and find out more about what you're doing?
Well, we're always open for phone calls to just have a conversation. They can give us a call. My phone number, our office number is 561-902-9697. And then also we have HR answers at mendhr.com. That is our email address for anyone to send us they need some answers. So send us an email there and we'll get back to you.
Great. We'll put links to that in the show notes below for the listeners so they can reach you there and find the information. Well, Nicole, we'd love to thank you for being on the Road Less Travel show today. Really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success. Thank
you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, Nicole, thanks for being on. We really appreciate it. And we'd also like to thank our listeners for tuning in and giving us a 5-star rating. Please continue to do so we can bring you more great content like Nicole Anderson today on our show. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. Park Capital Partners sponsors this show, as well as, please don't forget, we have the Park Capital Value Add Fund, which is a 506c investment fund. And then finally, we have the Park Capital Partners Foundation that we mentioned that is a nonprofit. Happy to share more information about that with you anytime. So remember, folks, the Road Less Travel may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.